Okay. Well, thank you for letting me observe your classroom. I just wanted to go over some things. First of all, which part of the small groups do you feel had the most success?
I'd probably say when they were working like directly with another adult, just because there's obviously a lot of opportunity for engagement, and you can see what they're doing and make sure they're on task and talk with them, and so I think that's probably like the most engaging or on task part.
Yeah, I really liked with having the two adults. I thought that worked really well with feedback. That was another question I had. What is the plan when your student teacher is gone?
So Tida will be in there with me at that time. So right now they're in with another teacher just because I really don't need them.
Okay.
But then they'll be in with me after she leaves.
So when you do small groups, you'll always have two adults. Perfect. That's awesome. Do you feel like there were any students who were not challenged enough during the lesson?
I think there's probably some on their Chromebooks for sure, who they have to like work through the lessons. I can't like tell them where to start, so like it automatically starts them at the very first thing you learn in second grade, which is like short vowels, which for some of them is really easy. So they have to like work through those simple lessons in order to get to the more challenging ones. So I do think there's some kids who are at a spot that are like, oh, this is really easy, but soon they'll get to the ones that are at their good spot.
Awesome. Okay. How do you prepare students of this age for the accountability that comes with independent workstations?
So like the first 2-3 weeks of school, we do it whole class. So we all do the computer time, and then we all do the writing about reading, and we do it full class so they know my expectations of it, they know how to do it, they know what it looks like before we start rotating them on their own. So they've had time with me to model it, to make sure they're doing it right before they do it on their own.
So this would have been like their probably like second week of doing it on their own?
Yeah.
Okay. For only having 2 weeks in, they seem to all know exactly what to do. And so I think that speaks a lot to your like consistency and your high expectations for your kids, which is a strength area that I think you really have in literacy. How do you feel about the cognitive level of questions that you ask during the lessons and the students' responses to those?
I feel like, at least for the part that I'm teaching, it's not a lot of like high level thinking, just because it's really challenging to get them to that point, like with what we're doing, like we're talking about short vowels, and so like to get them to apply that at like a higher DOK is a little bit challenging just with what we're doing, but as it builds on it, it gets harder. So then they have to like apply it to a sentence, and they have to write a sentence, or they have to apply it in a book. So it's still like a DOK 2 or DOK 3, but there's just not a lot of opportunity yet for that high level questioning.
Sure. So what can you do in the coming weeks and months to ensure that students continue to be engaged and actively participate in their learning? Like as like the newness of groups starts to wear off and kids become a little more fidgety, and especially as you're about to enter maternity leave, how can you make sure that they're still actively engaged in what's going on?
I'd say hold tight to like the Go Guardian, like it tracks them, giving students incentives for like making good progress on their computer part of their aspect, giving out STAR tickets for those students who are reading with good stamina, that type of thing, and having all that in place for my sub before I leave.
In what ways, and you kind of already talked about this, could you add more critical thinking and higher DOK levels? Kind of already talked about how it's kind of foundational, and then you start
and I
to
think
build.
like with the other person teaching, like they're doing more of the book and the questioning, that's really where we can dig a little bit into those higher DOKs throughout the reading block. So I think, obviously they should have exposure to it.
Sure.
Maybe just not getting it directly from me.
Okay. How will you continue to maximize literacy time to close the achievement gap?
Continue to be data driven, be very reflective with how they're progressing. If one of my groups, when I do give my exit ticket on Friday, is not meeting, then we're not moving on until they're meeting. So one group may go on to the next lesson where that other group may stay with the lesson that they had, being reflective of that, looking at the data, that type of thing, but also talking amongst my team, being that we do differentiate reading groups, who needs to move, who needs to stay, who needs some extra support, that type of thing.
Okay. What types of support do you think you will need to continue to increase the rigor of your small group work?
Well, the book I'm using, You Fly, is really new to us, and so Holton's kind of supporting us in the pilot of it, I guess you could say. So K1 is getting like the formal training, and second grade's just kind of trying to fill in some gaps that, you know, should have been addressed. So continue to work with her and get support on how to use that book.
Okay. So, when you guys do small group, like when you do small groups, how long do they stay in this cohort? Is it all year because they're bubble students, or is there a student who ever can master what you're teaching and go into another group?
It's really flexible.
Okay.
And I will tell you, they move a lot, which is great.
Okay.
So I would say we come as a team probably once a month to look at scores as a whole picture, not, okay, you're moving on fast, so I'm going to move you, but really all the FAs we do, all the interventions, like who's bored. Maybe they need the harder, so we move a lot.
Awesome. Well, I just want to talk about your strength areas that I noticed. And we kind of talked about how I really appreciated the way you conducted small groups for second graders, you know, because I've always taught older kids. It's awesome to see like small children being able to self-regulate and do that independent work. The work was differentiated, and the classroom culture and environment was very comfortable. Students knew the expectations that you had of them and were not afraid to challenge themselves and like rise to that. To me, it seems like your classroom is one where students are challenged but supported, so they know they can do hard things, and you've set that up in your classroom, which I love that. It's a really great classroom to go into. You had a lot of, it was amazing to me because it was like constantly you were interacting with the kids. The class was always like responding to your questions, or repeat after me, or let's do this, and it was so high energy, and sometimes that's really hard to do, especially right now. So I loved it. I thought that was an awesome part of being in your class. I enjoyed seeing that and seeing how the kids got into it. Like I said, the only growth area was just the DOK levels, and I know that, knowing you, I know you already have a plan for that. It's just I didn't observe it that day, but I know that that is something that you guys have already planned on, and as a whole grade, you know, you work on that. What do you think went well for the, like, as a whole over small groups that day?
I think the pacing went well. There was not a lot of downtime between groups, which is what has been my really big focus. Like, when you see the timer counting down, you better get moving. Like,
right.
When it turns red, you need to start putting your stuff away, because I think a lot of times that transition time is where we lose instruction. So it was really quick, I felt like, for second grade to be able to move between groups that quickly.
Do you ever have parents who are like not concerned, but don't want their kids working independently, if that makes sense? Like, they don't think their kids should be doing like independent time by themselves because of how old they are? Or are they all pretty much on board?
They're pretty much on board.
Okay. I don't really know how long these are supposed to last.